Hello ladies and gents, another video brought to you by Ants Hood. And today's video is about my Acromymex octoponosis getting the freedom of my room. I'm not even joking, they literally do get the freedom of my room. It's so cool. So you guys know from my previous videos about these, and if you haven't, I'll put a link into the top right corner now so you can check out their playlist. I have been wanting to get these girls to have a nice big long trail around my room. Now some people are doing it in tubing and stuff like that, if that's a safe way to do it, but you know Ants Hood, he's stupid, he will do anything once. So I've actually got some rope, so they're going to be open to the room and running around up and down this rope. Now, I'll go into that in a bit anyway. Let's talk about how they're getting on. Now, I'm only going to do this quickly because not a lot's really changed since my last video, other than the fungus had fallen over again. And as you can see, it's fallen over and they've built on top of it as they generally do. And they also dismantled the older stuff and put it in the outworld. You wouldn't believe how much they dismantled that, to be honest. I kind of feel like this fungus is never going to get any bigger than this because they just constantly build it, dismantle it, build it, dismantle it. And I know they're dismantling it because the amount of detritus I get in their rubbish pile. I cleaned that out midweek and it's still got another big pile of rubbish already. So they do, it's a very, I sound like I'm whinging, I'm not. It's growing a good size. As you can see in there's some brood, but I'll get some light on it now so you can check it out. Actually, most of these little crevices that you see in this fungus have all got brood in it. But look at that fruit again, those little red dots and yellow dots. Now, in my last video, it was like, is it poop? Is it fruit where the adults can eat? Well, somebody, I can't think who it is off the top of my head, actually messaged me to say he'd seen his his atters actually feeding off it. So why would they drink poo? Now, after Ant Pinkbutt Shy's comment, I'm really edging towards the fact that it's actually fruit and not poop. But like I said, the debate continues. But anyway, let's get on to me setting up this rope trail that I'm looking at setting up for my leaf cutters. So you all well know that I've got two pods. One's this prototype Wakooshi pod. Now, I've only got two pods for these girls, a feeding pod and their fungus pod. So I'm going to use this. This is their feeding pod. So what I'm going to do is open this up because it's got the biggest opening at the top. But you see that tubing where it used to hydrate? I don't hydrate this anymore, so it doesn't need to be there. So I need to remove that as well because what they're doing is they're climbing up that tubing. It doesn't matter what barrier you put on it, and they're getting out. So it needs to get gone. Luckily enough for me, I watched a video of Sid doing this, or Wakooshi, and he just pulled it out. And as you can see, I've done the exact same, and it was no dramas at all. You'll also notice that I've taken out the mesh base that used to be in this. Now, the reason for that is because it's actually a stand for the fungus and it works really well there. So the fungus is not in contact with the wet floor of the setup. And because obviously if fungus comes in contact with water, it dies, and that includes condensation. So you've got to be mindful, and it served its purpose, but I don't really need it anymore. So I've taken it out just so you've got it what it is now. And it is easier to clean it up because a little pile that you can see in the bottom left corner now, some leftover leaves and all of the broken down fungus I talked about earlier, makes it a lot easier to clean it out, and it just even looks a bit cleaner, to be honest. But I'm dribbling on and I'll get back on topic. So I've removed that piping, as I said. Now, what you'll also see me do a bit I'm not sure if I'm going to film it or record it, it doesn't really matter. Either way, I've put a fresh barrier along all the way around the top of this outworld now, or this pod now. And I've also made it a lot, in fact I'm doing that now as I'm recording. I can't even remember what I recorded, guys, jeez. So my plan is to reapply that barrier and make it thicker than I normally do. Now the reason for that is, yet again, because this is going to be open top, because it's got the biggest opening of the two pods that I've got, and the other one's got the fungus in it, and it's so big now I can't move it out of that pod now, so it's going to stay there forever. But the point being, it's got a big opening and I need to make sure that it's got a good barrier around it. Not only that though, I want to make sure I test this barrier as well, because what I don't want to do is apply the barrier thinking it's all hunky-dory, put the lid off and keep it off, and then they all get out. So what I actually did was I applied this yesterday and to make sure that it couldn't get past it, and I kept the lid on. Now the reason I kept the lid on is like, how are you going to test the barrier hood? Because there is a slight air gap in the top of this the acrylic where it's warped slightly. Don't forget it's this prototype, guys, and they tend to congregate around there. So I know, and they do that daily, so I know full well that if that barrier works, if I come down tomorrow, there should be no ants on the lid, and in fact there wasn't, so the barrier is absolutely fine. So the prep work on the original pod is now done, well, after I've done all this on the video anyway. So I need a feeding pod. Now you guys probably know that ant outworlds aren't cheap, they're quite expensive. So Hood has gone for the cheap option and he's got this. No, I know full well that I've got fancy pants outwards coming out my poo hole, but I needed something a bit different. I needed something that had a big opening where I can put the rope into, and I needed something that was relatively cheap because AntCon's coming up and I'm probably going to be bankrupt after it because I'm going to be buying a stupid amount of equipment at Ants, most likely. So this literally is I think it's a Boys, which is a department store or a shop for you guys who don't know it. And it's like, it cost me £1.50, cheap as chips. Bearing in mind, this is only going to be a short-term solution and it's not a long-term solution. I do intend to get a proper Outworld, but at the moment, money's tight. As I said, AntCon's coming up, so yeah, it's going to have to wait. In all fairness, very little prep was needed for this part. As you can, that's a hint there. That's a bit of the rope that I'm going to be using in the background, that is. But yeah, a little bit of prep work needed for this as well because I had to clean it in washing up liquid just to make sure it's nice and clean because it was a bit dirty. Not only that though, you don't know what they've been used to make it, I guess. I don't know. Either way, I cleaned it just to be better safe than sorry. And as you can see here, I'm applying a PTFE barrier. Now, normally I only do about an inch barrier thick, and that normally has to be ample, but with this, I'm applying about a 2 to 3 inch barrier. I'm making this a nice thick barrier because I'm not going to be watching them 24/7. I need to make sure they can't get past it. So I'm applying that nice thick barrier all over the place. Now, I did look at potentially using mineral oil, but I decided against it and I decided for PTFE. I think it's because they're not less likely to stick stuff to it when I'm not looking. But equally, when this setup gets done, I will not be leaving them unsupervised for quite a while with this. So, for example, I am going to connect them up for the benefit of this video so I can see them going across, but I will stop them, disconnect it and put the food back in to their current Outworld, simply because I do not want to leave these unsupervised until I am 100% confident this whole setup works. Now, you will just notice I docked my finger in the Outworld, and that's so I could get some workers on my finger because I wanted to make sure they can't get this past this barrier. And the reason I say that, I've used plastic containers before and initially they get there fine, the barriers work. Well, it's 50-50 if the barrier works on a cheap plastic rather than a smooth acrylic. So that's what I was testing here. The camera's all over the place. Now, I'll leave these girls in this Outworld for a little while. Well, Outworld, I use that term loosely. This tub for a little while to see how they get on, to make sure they can't get past it. There was a gap just there. If you look in the corner, you can see where I missed a little bit of it. And I reapplied a barrier. I'm not sure if I filmed it or not. I did film it, there we go. I just reapplied the barrier in that little gap so they don't exploit it a bit later when they're going to be in here en masse, because this is where I'm going to put all of the leaves and stuff for them to feed off. You may argue that I'm being a bit over cautious here, making sure all the barriers and stuff work, but I kind of feel like it's needed because this is the first time I've had an open top ant set up with them, and I want to make sure that it is secure, that the ants aren't running around everywhere. I won't lie, my wife hated this idea of what I'm going to do today, as you'll see in this video. She didn't want me to do it, but I'm stubborn, she's stubborn, I'm doing it anyway. She's going to hate me forever, and the worst thing I could possibly have is ants getting out of one of the Outworlds or off the rope and then running around all over the place. So, well, it could be a relationship ender. Maybe I should tip my ants up and they run around everywhere and then I'll be single again. Yay. Nah, I'm only kidding. I do love my wife. But let's talk about the rope that I'm actually using. Now, this is actually rope meant for pets. I believe it's a parrot rope or something like that. And there's quite a thick, because it's stiff as anything, metal running around in the middle of it so you can shape it and stuff like that. There's also a hook on the end, but I ended up taking that off because I don't need it. But yeah, so it's got metal running through it, so it's actually rigid and stiff. And it means that I can shape it how I see fit as well, and it will hold that shape rather than just depending on the strings from the roof and stuff forming the shape I want it to do. This, I'll be able to mold it with the metal inside it, so I thought this was ideal. I've got no idea what it's made out of, but I'm guessing it's some form of cotton. I should have checked the label before chucking it away. And it's approximately about 1.5 meters long, so long enough to give me a decent trail for what I want. Now, I popped into the reptile shop around the corner from me and just on the off to see what was there, and I found this, and then I was like, this was here, I want this for my leaf cutters. In fact, I'm going to go on a mad one. I'm going to set my leaf cutters up this crazy rope, and this is where I'm at now. And to tell you the truth, I thought this was really reasonably priced because it only cost me like 20 quid, which to me is a bit of a bargain, to be honest. So I wanted to use hooks on the roof so I could connect it all up, and I thought these were really good. And I think they could say they could hold up to 0.5 kilogram of weight, and I thought, yay, these will be brilliant. Because those little hooks, they're flexible, so if I put them on the roof or put them on the wall, it doesn't really matter, they'll move. So you can get all the angles that I could possibly want. So I thought these would be really good. I set it all up, believe it or not, yesterday, and all I heard was a thud as they came off the roof. Clearly, when it said 0.5 kilogram, they must have been measuring it on a wall and not a roof. So obviously it hasn't got as much holding power, shall we say. So I needed to think of a solution to this because it was a problem. So I picked up these sticky things which I can attach to the back of those hooks and then put them on the roof. Apparently they can hold 4.4 kilograms, so I don't think this total thing weighs any more than 1.5 kilograms anyway, so I can see this holding it and it should be fine. Fingers crossed. You might ask why I'm not nailing it into the roof, because I've got no idea what is running through my roof and I don't want to put nails into it and cook myself. But not only that though, I'll have to drill a hole, I'll have to put the plug in, then screw it in to fix it in place, and I'll leave a big gaping hole in the roof. I'd rather do this so there's no permanent damage to my ceiling. Not only that though, if this turns out to be a disaster, I've not got 2 stinking holes in my roof for no reason. And I also found some fishing line at Boys as well. Now this apparently holds 20 kilograms or 45 pounds, so you should not struggle at all with holding this rope up. And it was only cheap, it was like less than £4, so I was like, bargain, I'll go for that one. Now the reason I've used fishing line is because apparently ants can't climb it. I've never tested this up until today, but apparently, yeah, they can't climb it, so I'm going to try it and see if it works or not. Now, the first thing I had to do was clean up my desk, because you guys might know if you watch my channel and seen it in the background. On the right-hand side of this table, I've generally got rubbish there. I've got a mud set up there for Formica roofers, but I don't know how they're doing because they're in mud and I can't see them. But anyway, and I had like a metre tall model of the Saturn V rocket, as well as some other modelling paraphernalia. So I cleaned all that out so I can move my Solenopsis over to the side, so then I've got a decent work area that I can start working on this rope. Now, believe it or not, more than I can explain in 3 pictures I'm about to show you, including this one, this is very much a trial and error kind of thing. This rope is very stiff to try and bend, but I understand why, because it's designed to hold parrots that be a couple of kilograms. So it was very stiff, and it was a lot of hard work to bend it round to the shapes that I kind of wanted. And I ended up settling with this one, which has got a nice little tight turn around the corner as it comes out in front, and then going to drop into the little pod, as you can see it hanging there. Now, this didn't last 5 minutes because it then fell off the roof, as I've explained before, but now I've secured it properly and it's holding steady at the moment. So now it's time to test the rope and the fishing line to see if it works. So what I've done is I've kept those 3 workers in that tub, and I've connected dropped the rope into it so they can climb up it and see if they can get off it or they fall off it. Now, I absolutely love the angle this takes. When I'm sat down, I can just see them coming straight towards me before they bow off along this bit here. But obviously, because I've not put it in the other end yet, they'll just come around the end and then walk back up the rope, which they have been doing. Now, this is the first worker, or the bravest worker, that's actually brave going along the rope. As you can see from the rope, actually, it's really fine. And what I've actually done as well, which you'll probably see a bit later, is I've got one of the small minor workers, because I picked it out of the rubbish, and I've put her on the rope as well to see if she can climb it okay. And frankly, I'm just looking at her now as I'm filming this. She seems to be doing okay, to be honest. She's not fallen off or anything, which is really, really good. That sigh of disappointment is actually relating to this right now, to be fair, because I've just recording this, talking to you, and I've just noticed my aunt's doing something which put a scupper on this whole plan. I mean, as you can see from this, you can climb the rope fine, and she's not falling off, it's all hunky-dory, it's all brilliant. God, I'm so disappointed. I might as well just crack on and tell you, to be honest, and stop my train of thought that I was going on talking about this. So, look, this is what I was sighing at. To tell you the truth, I'm so disappointed. Yeah, because this is me live filming, basically. Because I've set this all up, I've put the ants on, I'm editing it while I'm making sure I'm happy with these guys running around like they are. And then I see this, and it's really disappointing. I mean, I've seen them do it on this particular strand twice, and I just watched them do it on another one. They don't get very high up and then they slide back down, but luckily, because they've got a grip, they just slide back onto the rope, which is good, as you'll see in a second. But the point that they can climb it is scupping my plan. Now, this is very thick fishing line. I think it's like for seafaring or whatever it is, I don't know. But either way, what I could do is get a thinner fishing line for more coarse fishing rather than sea fishing. Thinking about it, the only one I've actually seen him climb is the one that I've filmed, which has got a lot of slack in it. Now, it's not got any strain on it at all, so I can get rid of that. And another one that's got a slight little bit of slack, but they didn't get very high on that one. So what I'm thinking is maybe, and just maybe, it's only if it's got some slack and they can climb it that they're actually doing it, because we haven't seen them climb any of the other ones. Now the only way I'm going to find out is if I send them lever en masse. Now, as I explained earlier when I was talking about this, I am going to supervise them for this whole procedure, as it were. I'm not going to leave them just to go crazy overnight, because I don't want my ant room full of ants, even though there are some benefits to that. So I'm going to wait until after I've had my food, and I'm going to come back, connect them all up, and then watch them for an hour or two to see how they get on, and film it obviously and put it in this video. So after a slight break to get my food, I picked up some of their leaves, which I know they like because I've eaten them before and they kind of go crazy for them, and I'm going to stick them in this feeding tub. Now, I don't go absolutely crazy with leaves, but I do put a decent amount in, making sure that I'm not like touching the barrier or getting it about above the barrier, so they don't use their leaves to escape, because that will just be an absolute nightmare. And I've also given these leaves to them before, so I definitely know that they do like them, so hopefully I should get some good feeding trails. So now I've done with that, I'm about to put the other end of the rope into the outwell, but when I took it off, I noticed, you just seen it there, there are some ants on this roof, and that means they're getting past the barrier somehow. Now, I haven't figured out how they're doing it or how they managed it, but I am going to keep an eye on it for the next hour or so to see if I can get, if any more get out, and if they do, try and identify where they're getting out from so I can reapply the barrier. So as you can just see, I have now connected it all up, and let's wait and see how quickly they get all over the rope, as it were. As you can see, it's kind of busy in this pod anyway, but once I stick this in, they swarm it relatively quickly, and it's a bit like, hey, what the hell is this big blue, greeny, whatever colour it is actually doing in our nest? It wasn't here before. And if we speed it up, we can see how gingerly that they do actually climb this. I mean, to be fair, I was expecting more reaction, but it took them quite a while to actually start exploring up the rope, to be honest. Bear in mind, this is speeded up ×8. And this is like real time about how slowly they go up. And not only that though, they do progress along this whole rope at this speed, but they also turn back and then go back. So it is quite a slow, painful process for them just to explore this rope. And if you think it took them a while just to explore this bit of rope, it took them even longer to start cutting. I mean, but look down here, look how busy they are getting down here by the base of this rope now. They're really getting interested in it. And what seemed like an eternity, once I actually got to this ant here went straight to business and started cutting some leaves. And then that was it for ages. And then when she did finally climb the rope, or start to, she'd get so far, then she'll turn around and go straight back into the put again. It was just nightmarish to watch. And while she was divering, this ant here decided to be a trapeze artist and climb the fishing line. But, not surprising of course, because you've seen it before, but what I have done is put PTFE on it, and it's now seemed to have stopped them climbing it. But not to worry, the cutting of leaves did increase, and if you look at this time lapse here, I've slowed this down a little bit more, you can see that they do, this is when I first connected it up, but it does take a while for them to start finding the food, but once they do, you can start seeing just glimmers of the green as they start taking up the rope, bearing in mind some of them go up and down, up and down. Now, I'd thought it'd be nice, efficient, right, we've got some food, straight back to the fungus. No, they divot around something fierce. It's probably because the trail's still quite weak at the moment, I haven't quite established it fully yet, but looking at it now, as I'm talking to you, I can see that the rate of cutting's increasing and the root's getting a bit more sturdier. Because I've got some leftover footage and stuff, but it's still really cool, what I'm going to do is show it now, put it on the end of this video, and shut up so you guys can enjoy it. So this is the setup in its entirety. You've got the 2 puts to the bottom left corner, you've got the feeding put in the back, and then you've got the rope connecting it all up. Personally, I think it looks very, very cool. Well, that's it for today then, this video, guys. I do hope you enjoy it. Don't forget, if you want to find me, just search for me on Facebook or Instagram, and I'll get back to everyone's message. So a big thank you for watching it. If you do like this video, like and subscribe. But I also owe my Patreons a big thanks too. So please join me in saying a big thank you to Adam W, Adrian, Antantics, Anty Matters, David D, Jason W, Kevin R, Paul A, Pavance, PJGrant and Wakooshi. And if you want to become a Patreon, join the link below. Wow, that was fast. Anyway, that's it for today then, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. See you in my next one. Bye-bye for now.